Imagine a day at the airport that starts out like any other, but then suddenly turns into a tense clash between a determined female pilot and a determined passenger. Ant, leaving everyone in shock. Where are you watching the video from? Please share your position in the comments section below. Now let's start the story. It was a morning at JFK Airport, New York. The scene was bustling as usual, with crowds preparing to board flights to Los Angeles. Some people enjoy an early cup of coffee, others check tickets or line up at the gate. And in that line of people, there was a woman named Lisa. She looked annoyed, constantly muttering about the delay as she approached the gate. Suddenly, Lisa's eyes caught the image of Captain Elena Rodriguez, a tall, confident black female pilot in an elegant pilot uniform. Elena has over 10 years of flying experience and is known for her skills and professionalism. But to Lisa, all of that means nothing. She frowned, her eyes narrowed in suspicion, and muttered, "Really? A woman of color flying a plane? Now they let anyone fly a plane?" Lisa's words were loud enough for those around her to hear. The atmosphere at the gate suddenly became tense. Everyone started whispering, looking surprised and uncomfortable. Some passengers looked at Lisa with surprise, while others turned away, confused and not knowing how to react. Elena heard Lisa's words but remained calm. This wasn't the first time she had faced people like Lisa, and she was used to handling these situations. Even so, the tension in the air still made her feel heavy. Lisa still stood there, arms crossed and shaking her head as if Elena's presence offended her. Her voice grew higher and higher as she asked an airline employee, "Is she really a pilot? I don't feel safe with this." The airline staff was surprised by Lisa's obvious racism and tried to calm her down. "Ma'am, Captain Rodriguez is one of our best pilots. You don't need to worry." But Lisa replied angrily, "I don't care how qualified she is. I wouldn't have gotten on this flight if she was the pilot." Lisa's voice became louder and louder, attracting the attention of other passengers. Some people began to move uncomfortably, while others quietly took out their phones to record the incident. However, Elena remained calm and focused on completing the pre-flight checks. She understands that passenger safety is much more important than a woman's insulting words. But Lisa still hasn't stopped. She stormed over to the gate agent's desk, still filled with anger. "I demand to see the supervisor. I will not get on this flight with her at the helm." The gate agent, trying to maintain a professional demeanor, replied firmly, "Ma'am, Captain Rodriguez is fully qualified. If you do not wish to board this flight, we can assist you with other options. However, we do not accept discrimination." Lisa's face turned red with anger. Her eyes quickly glanced around, noticing the critical looks of other passengers. She stammered, "I don't discriminate. I just don't feel safe with her being the driver." At that moment, the atmosphere was so tense that the surrounding passengers could no longer stay silent. A middle-aged man named Thomas, sitting nearby, stood up, looked straight at Lisa, and said strongly, "Miss, you have no right to judge here. I have flown with Captain Rodriguez before, and she's one of the best pilots I've ever seen. The problem isn't her ability, it's her prejudices." A few other passengers nodded in agreement. Their eyes turned to Lisa, clearly expressing their dissatisfaction. Immediately after that, a young woman named Sarah, a mother of 2 children traveling with her family, spoke up with disgust. "It's unbelievable that today we still have to deal with this type of crime. This lack of understanding. You should feel ashamed of your behavior." Lisa looked around in surprise and saw many passengers standing on the opposite side of her. She was confused, but instead of retreating, Lisa became more adamant with her request. "I don't care what you think," she insisted. "I'm not flying with her. Either I will take another flight or I want to meet the responsible person immediately. This is completely unacceptable." At that moment, an aviation supervisor named Mark appeared, alerted to this tense situation. He kept a calm attitude, approached Lisa and said seriously, "Ma'am, we can help you change to another flight if you feel uncomfortable. However, we cannot allow this discriminatory behavior to continue. Captain Rodriguez was our pilot for this flight, and we fully support her." Lisa looked around and saw that no one supported her. Her eyes wavered, confused by the criticism and disapproving looks from the surrounding passengers. But no matter what, Lisa still refused to yield. Her voice stuttered, but she still tried to remain firm. "I will sue this airline. I will not fly unless they replace her." Supervisor Mark remained calm but firmly emphasized, "Madam, we will not meet these unreasonable requests. If you do not feel comfortable, we will have to ask you to leave." Realizing that she wouldn't be able to win in this situation, Lisa had to throw up her hands in frustration. "Fine, I'll go, but you'll all regret this." She spoke loudly and left with an angry and resentful attitude, panting for breath. The remaining passengers looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief when Lisa finally disappeared from sight. The atmosphere at the gate returned to peace. Everyone silently supported Captain Rodriguez, who maintained his composure and professionalism in this tense situation. Passengers after the incident turned their attention back to Captain Elena, who remained professional and calm throughout the entire ordeal. Some passengers approached and did not hesitate to express their gratitude and encourage her spirit. An elderly man put his hand on Elena's shoulder and said sincerely, "We always support you." Elena smiled modestly and nodded gratefully. She wasn't looking for praise. She was just doing her job. But the encouragement from the passengers truly warmed her heart, more than they could know. Elena entered the cockpit and began preparing for takeoff. The atmosphere in the gate area became lighter as people boarded the plane, leaving behind the tension that had prevailed just a few minutes before. Once everyone was seated, the chaos at the gate seemed to dissipate, giving way to peace on the flight. However, Elena knows that today's challenging journey is not completely over. Some passengers recorded Lisa's entire incident, and when the plane landed in Los Angeles, the video quickly spread online, becoming a hot topic. Support came from all over for Captain Elena, who faced and handled the situation with elegance and professionalism despite prejudice. Praise poured in from all over the world, expressing admiration for her calmness and bravery in the face of discrimination. Elena's story quickly became a symbol of resilience and strength, and what she did that day will continue to be an inspiration to many others. As for Lisa, she has become the center of a backlash from the public, having to face the consequences of her actions. The online world never forgets, and this time, Lisa learned a lesson that her words and actions will never go unnoticed or unquestioned. But before the tension at the gate was completely over, Lisa didn't stop and got even angrier. Her frustration grew. Her words became more harsh and unpleasant. Lisa approached the nearest gate agent, her face contorted with anger. "I want to see the supervisor immediately," she screamed. "There's no way I'm going to let a colored woman take me across the country. She looks incompetent. How ridiculous." The gate agent still tried to maintain a professional tone despite Lisa's harsh comments. With a serious demeanor, he said, "Ma'am, Captain Rodriguez is one of our most experienced pilots. I can assure you that you are in safe hands." But Lisa didn't want to hear any explanations. Determined to follow her will, she responded harshly, "I don't care how much experience she has. Look at her. How can I trust my life in her hands? I ask another person to enter the cockpit, otherwise I will not get on this flight." Lisa's loud voice spread throughout the gate area, attracting the attention of surrounding passengers. Their eyes were a mixture of disbelief and disgust, causing the noisy but usually quiet atmosphere of the airport to freeze. Some people looked at each other with uncomfortable looks. Others whispered comments in silence, and a few people quietly took out their phones to record the scene. Everyone realized that this was not just an ordinary complaint, but a blatant, in-your-face racism. Despite the growing crowd and Lisa's escalating behavior, Captain Elena Rodriguez remained calm. Standing not far away, she observed the situation, but did not let the hateful words affect her. Elena has encountered prejudice many times before, and she clearly understands that her top priority is to ensure the flight is safe. She knew that, in these situations, it was better to stay silent instead of letting Lisa's anger escalate, to avoid the situation becoming out of control, affecting the safety of both passengers and crew. Crew! However, Lisa continued to criticize. Her tone became increasingly aggressive and tried to attract the surrounding crowd. "Seriously, does anyone here feel safe with her flying a plane?" Lisa asked with disdain in her voice, her challenging eyes scanning the passengers. The people around looked at each other hesitantly. Some seemed too stunned to speak, while others were unsure how to intervene. Some passengers remained glued to their phones, hoping that airport staff would soon resolve the situation without making things worse. Finally, a courageous passenger stepped forward, not wanting to let Lisa's behavior go unnoticed. A middle-aged woman wearing a business suit named Rachel had been silently observing from the beginning, now stood up, walked over, and looked straight at Lisa, saying in a determined voice, "Miss, you need to stop." Again, Captain Rodriguez is an experienced pilot, and her comments were offensive and inappropriate. "You're making everyone here feel uncomfortable." Lisa smiled sarcastically with no intention of backing down. "I don't care how upset you guys are. What I care about is that I'm not comfortable flying with her, and that's what matters." Rachel did not flinch. Her voice was sharp and decisive. "No, what matters is the safety of everyone here, and Captain Rodriguez is completely capable of ensuring that. You're just looking for an excuse to show off your racism." Rachel's words raised a wave of sympathy in the gate area. Some passengers, who were hesitant, began to nod and voice their support for her. Murmurs of agreement spread, causing the atmosphere to change. However, Lisa didn't seem to care about people's reactions. The anger inside her flared up even more intensely, and she was determined to do everything to fulfill her will, despite strong opposition from those around her. Lisa turned to face the gate agent, her voice dripping with smugness and demand. "I paid a lot of money for this flight, and I require a pilot I can trust. If you don't fix this, I will file a complaint with the airline, and believe me, that won't do you any good." The gate agent, who had been trying to maintain patience, was clearly at the end of his patience. He replied with a firmer voice, "Ma'am, you have the right to complain, but please understand that we cannot change the pilot just because of your personal prejudices. If you do not feel comfortable taking this flight, we will help you find another flight. However, we cannot accept this type of behavior." Lisa crossed her arms grimly and scoffed, "Oh, then I'll take another flight. But trust me, my lawyer won't let this go." She continued to spout threats, but at this point, another passenger decided she could no longer stand by. A tall man, just over 30 years old, wearing simple clothes, approached Lisa. He had been silently observing from the beginning, but now felt like he had to speak up. "You know, ma'am," he said, shaking his head in disbelief, "you're the one who made this flight unsafe. Captain Rodriguez has performed hundreds of flights perfectly. You're the only one with a problem here." Lisa glared at him and replied angrily, "Don't interfere in my business. This has nothing to do with you." The man laughed faintly, not backing down at all. "Oh, it concerns all of us. We are all on this flight, and we will not let your ignorance affect everyone." At this time, many other passengers began to approach, their voices ringing out to show support for Captain Rodriguez. The tension that has been simmering for a while has reached its peak. Everyone is tired of seeing Lisa spew out prejudiced words. One by one, each passenger began to criticize her racist attitude. "It's you who doesn't belong here." Another woman standing behind the line said, "You need to stop and let everyone be safe." Lisa was speechless, standing in the middle of a wave of criticism from all sides, with no one on her side. Those around them gradually united to protect a person who maintained his professionalism and steadfast spirit throughout this tense situation. Finally, Lisa felt cornered, slowly realizing that she was losing control of the situation. Her impatient attitude began to subside when she looked around and realized that she was alone. The people she thought would be on her side have now turned their backs, leaving her standing alone in front of a crowd fed up with her antics. When everything seemed to be coming to an end, an aviation supervisor named Mark calmly approached, assessing the scene with calm but authoritative eyes. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low and firm, "we have received many complaints about your behavior. I will have to ask you to step aside so we can discuss this matter further." Lisa, realizing that she might be removed from the flight, tried to argue. "I'm not going anywhere until this is resolved. I won't get on that plane with her." Supervisor Mark remained adamant. "We are happy to assist you in finding another flight, but your current behavior is unacceptable, and we will not allow it to continue." Lisa's face turned red with frustration, and for a moment she stood there, speechless. The power she thought she had was slowly disappearing, and she could only glare at the airline staff, defeat clearly visible in her eyes. Captain Elena Rodriguez, standing some distance away in a crisp pilot uniform, is familiar with the challenges of being a woman of color in a field where diversity is still a new concept. With more than 15 years of flying experience and countless accolades for her leadership skills, She's faced prejudice over the years, but Lisa's open hostility is still hard to swallow. Elena continued the pre-flight check-in process, remaining calm and determined not to let Lisa's harsh words distract her or affect her professionalism. A few crew members exchanged worried looks, not knowing how to handle the situation without adding to the tension, as the growing number of passengers were clearly feeling uncomfortable. Some people spoke out against Lisa's behavior, but she still insisted on meeting the person responsible. As the tension continued to escalate, one of the airline supervisors approached Elena, quietly suggesting that perhaps a few words from her might help ease the tension. Straight. Elena, always calm under pressure, nodded in agreement, ready to face Lisa, even though she knew there was little chance this woman would change her mind. With years of experience handling difficult situations, Elena is not intimidated by Lisa's outbursts. Her focus is to ensure all passengers and crew feel safe, and she knows that this situation needs to be handled with grace and professionalism. Elena took a deep breath, stood up straight, her shoulders strong, and approached the gate area with composure, attracting everyone's attention. As she approached, Lisa, who had been arguing with the gate agent, turned around and her eyes widened in surprise, which quickly turned to indignation. Lisa couldn't believe that the woman she had just publicly insulted had the nerve to come near her. Lisa's face turned red with anger, as if she were about to explode. But Elena spoke before Lisa could say more. Elena's voice was professional yet gentle. "Ma'am," she began, maintaining eye contact, "I understand that you have concerns about this flight, and I want to assure you that your safety is you, and all the passengers are my top priority." Lisa blinked for a moment, surprised by the calmness in Elena's tone. The pilot's steady gaze seemed to make Lisa waver for a moment, but immediately she regained her stiff expression. "How can you ensure my safety?" Lisa asked, her voice full of sarcasm. "You don't even belong in that cockpit. Is this a joke? You are not qualified." The poison in Lisa's words spread, making many nearby passengers feel uncomfortable. Some people looked at Lisa with surprised eyes, while others whispered to each other, horrified by the harsh words coming from her mouth. However, Elena did not flinch. She had mentally prepared herself for these words, even though it was unpleasant to hear them so openly. Her face remained neutral, refusing to let her emotions take over, and her professionalism was unwavering. "I can assure you, ma'am," Elena said, her voice calm and confident, "that I am completely qualified for this job." Elena looked straight at Lisa. Her voice was calm and confident. "I have been flying for more than 15 years and have logged thousands of hours in the air. I have undergone extensive training courses and possess many certifications. My team and I remain committed to ensuring every passenger has a safe and comfortable flight." As Elena continued, Lisa's face became even redder. She didn't expect such a calm and respectful response. She wanted a confrontation, an argument to justify her anger, but Elena wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, the female pilot provided the truth and maintained professionalism, making it increasingly difficult for Lisa to defend her arguments. "You can say whatever you want," Lisa replied, her voice rising again. "But I don't believe you. I don't trust you with my life. You shouldn't fly a plane. This is too big a responsibility for someone like you." Elena blinked slightly at the harsh comment, but she remained calm. She had faced too many challenges in her career to let someone like Lisa lose control. Instead, Elena gently replied, "I understand that trust is important when flying, and I take this responsibility completely seriously. But making assumptions about my abilities based solely on my appearance is unfair and actually harmful." Lisa curled her lips and smiled sarcastically. "You think this is about looks? No, this is about experience and skill, and she doesn't have that. I know what a real pilot looks like, and you are not one." The obvious racism in Lisa's words hung in the air, making many passengers gasp in shock. Some people couldn't believe their ears. Others quickly pulled out their phones to record an exchange that went far beyond a simple customer complaint. Elena remained calm. She said in a professional voice, "I understand your concerns, but I am fully qualified to ensure that this flight will run safely and smoothly. However, if you are not comfortable flying with me, I recommend that you discuss alternatives with airline staff. The safety and well-being of all passengers is my top priority, and I cannot let my personal biases get in the way of that." Lisa's eyes flashed with anger, her hands clenched tightly at her sides. She wasn't used to being spoken to so calmly, but with such authority by someone she openly disrespected. Elena's intransigence only made Lisa angrier. "I'm not going anywhere until the situation is resolved," Lisa hissed. "This is outrageous." The ticket inspector, who had been standing nervously watching the conversation, stepped forward. With a calm but determined voice, he cautiously said, "Ma'am, we have provided you with alternatives, but we cannot change the pilot for this flight. If you continue to cause a disturbance, we will have no choice but to ask you to leave the flight." Lisa got angry again. Frustration flared up again. "You think you can kick me off this flight? I'll make you lose your job over this. This is discrimination. You are all against me," she shouted loudly, her tone full of menace. The irony of Lisa accusing the airline of discrimination did not move any of the passengers who witnessed the entire incident. Some people quietly chuckled at the absurdity of her statement, while others just shook their heads in dismay. Lisa was still determined not to back down, confident in her intentions. However, Elena made her stance clear. She gave Lisa a chance to talk politely, and Lisa also made her point clear. With nothing more to say, Elena nodded slightly to the gate agent before turning away, keeping her head held high. Elena returned to her pre-flight duties, determined not to let one person's ignorance affect her work and professionalism. A wave of silent admiration spread among the passengers. Many people have deep respect for Elena because of the way she handled the situation with a calm and brave demeanor. Passengers who were initially apprehensive now have no doubts. They have complete confidence in Captain Elena Rodriguez. Meanwhile, Lisa's anger continued to escalate, and the other passengers' patience began to run out. Many people tried not to notice, but Lisa's noise went beyond the limit. The simmering tension at the gate area is on the verge of exploding. A man wearing a neat suit, sitting close and clearly hearing every insult Lisa said, slowly stood up. His face expressed both disappointment and disbelief. "Sorry," he said loudly enough for everyone around him to hear. "I have flown with Captain Rodriguez more than once, and they have always been the smoothest flights I have ever experienced." His words cut through Lisa's words like a sharp blade. Lisa turned to glare at him, but the man didn't stop. He adjusted his tie, took a step towards her. His voice was calm but firm. "This is not a matter of safety, but of your prejudices, and honestly, I've heard enough." Lisa was momentarily stunned by this direct confrontation. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could say more, another voice rang out from a nearby row. A young mother holding her small child stood up. Her eyes sparkled with determination. "Today I will fly with my son," she said, looking directly at Lisa, "and I completely trust Captain Rodriguez with my son's life. How dare you doubt her qualifications just because of her skin color? That is not only wrong, but also shameful." A wave of sympathy spread in the gate area, heads nodding, whispers of support growing louder and louder. Passengers who initially remained silent now fully participated in the debate. Lisa's arrogant confidence gradually evaporates when she realizes that the current is against her. Her gaze roamed around, looking for an ally, but everyone was united against her. A deep voice rang out from behind. An older woman, sitting a few rows away, slowly said, "I have spent many years watching others be judged for unrelated things. Nothing to do with their abilities. Captain Rodriguez is more than qualified to fly this aircraft, and frankly, I'm glad she's in charge today." The atmosphere in the gate area has completely changed. What began as an unpleasant, tense situation has now transformed into a powerful show of solidarity for Captain Elena Rodriguez. Passengers, one by one, stood up for her, united against ignorance and discrimination, turning the confrontation into a testament to the power of unity and determination. Passengers who were previously silent now stood up to express their disgust at Lisa's behavior. A group of college students sitting nearby were recording the entire scene on their phones. One of them said loudly, "We're filming this whole thing, and the way you treated the captain was unacceptable. Trust me, everyone will see this. You can't just say whatever you want and expect there won't be consequences." Lisa's defiant expression gradually faltered. Her eyes nervously glanced at the phones facing her, and the confidence she had shown just a few minutes ago seemed to have weakened. She realized that her words not only angered those around her, but also had the potential to spread to a much larger audience. Realizing that she was being recorded, Lisa stubbornly stood her ground, her voice faltering but still speaking loudly. "This has nothing to do with race," she protested, even though the words sounded weak to those present. "I'm just worried about my safety, and I have the right to speak up about it." But the passengers did not accept her excuse. A man with a bushy beard and baseball cap standing near the boarding area walked over, looked directly at Lisa and said, "Your concern is not about safety, but about prejudice. Miss, we all want a safe flight, and we know Captain Rodriguez is the person who will ensure it. You're the one trying to turn this into something ugly." Lisa's eyes darted around the gate area, now fully aware that she was no longer in control of the situation. The passengers she expected to quietly support were now united against her, defending the pilot she had insulted. Every word from the crowd seemed to melt away Lisa's defiance, making her look smaller and more isolated by the second. Then a young woman sitting at the back of the gate area stood up and walked forward. Her eyes stared at Lisa, her voice clear and steady. "This is 2024, not 1964. We can no longer tolerate this type of hate," she continued. "Captain Rodriguez earned her place in that cockpit, and she has no right to question that simply because of the color of her skin. It's time for you to leave behind your prejudices and integrate with people in the modern world." The gate area erupted with resounding applause, a sound full of power, challenge, and solidarity. It was a collective protest against the racism that Lisa tried to spread, and a strong support for Captain Elena Rodriguez. This story now is no longer about a mere complaint. It was a display of solidarity among passengers standing together against injustice, protecting diversity and equality in the community. Applause echoed throughout the station area, attracting the attention of people around, including those who had not closely followed the situation from the beginning. Lisa, who had been looking defiant and confident just a few minutes ago, now looked completely defeated. Her face was red with shame and frustration as she looked around and realized she had no allies left. Passengers, airline employees, even those recording the incident, all took sides opposing her. She was alone in her fight, and it was clear that in the end, she lost. After what seemed like an eternity, Lisa muttered something in anger, crossing her arms. Her words were so quiet that almost no one heard them. But what was clear was that she was completely overwhelmed by the united strength of the passengers, who all stood up to support Captain Elena Rodriguez. While the applause continued, Elena, standing a short distance away, was a bit confused by the enthusiastic support from the passengers. She was not looking for recognition or validation from them, but this solidarity truly brought a feeling of warmth and encouragement. Elena smiled and nodded appreciatively to the crowd before returning to her duties, focusing on getting everyone to safety. The tense atmosphere continued to be evident when an aviation supervisor named Mark approached the scene. His face was stern but kept calm. He had been observing the situation from afar, hoping that it would resolve itself, but with the growing unrest among the passengers and Lisa's refusal to back down, it was clear that it was time to intervene. As Mark approached, he motioned for Lisa to step aside so they could talk in private. Lisa, still filled with anger, followed him to an area a few steps from the boarding gate. She crossed her arms over her chest, her face red and her eyes shining with defiance. She still believed she was right, but Mark's stern expression made her realize that this situation was not going to end in her favor. "Ma'am," Mark began, his voice calm yet authoritative, reflecting his professionalism in handling a difficult situation. "I have been informed of your concerns about the pilot of this flight," Mark, the supervisor, said in a calm but clear voice. "However, I want you to understand that such behavior is inappropriate, and we cannot accept it. Our airline does not tolerate discrimination of any kind, and your comments toward Captain Rodriguez cross the line." Lisa's face contorted with anger. She pointed viciously at Elena, who was now back near the cockpit to perform the final stages of pre-flight checks. "Are you seriously saying I should ignore the fact that you guys let her fly the plane?" Her voice was full of contempt. "I'm not the only one with problems here. I have the right to feel safe, and I don't feel safe with her as my pilot." The supervisor slightly squinted his eyes but remained calm. "Captain Rodriguez is completely qualified to fly this aircraft. In fact, she is one of our best pilots, with an impeccable flying record. The issue here is not her abilities, but her own prejudices. And that is not something we can afford to influence this flight or inconvenience other passengers." Lisa scoffed, shaking her head. Prejudice? Do you think I'm prejudiced just because I'm worried about my safety? How ridiculous. I am a customer, and I have the right to fly with a qualified person. Mark realized that Lisa wouldn't back down easily, but he knew he needed to be firm and clear. Ma'am, you have every right to fly with a qualified pilot, and Captain Rodriguez meets all of those standards after many years of hard work. Now I will give you a choice. He lowered his voice, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation. You can board this flight and show respect to our crew, or I will have to ask you to leave the flight. Lisa's face turned deep red. She glared at the supervisor. You can't just kick me off this plane. I will sue this airline, and you will all be out of work when I am done. Lisa's threat did not faze Mark. He was used to dealing with difficult passengers. We're sorry you feel that way, but our policy is clear. We do not tolerate discrimination or harassment. If you continue to disrupt the boarding process and refuse to respect crew members, we will have no choice but to ask you to leave. Lisa looked around nervously, her eyes flitting from the supervisor to the passengers watching with growing impatience. The murmurs from the crowd grew louder, and some passengers even shook their heads, expressing disgust with her behavior. She could feel the pressure building, but stubbornly held her ground. You will regret this, Lisa muttered, but her voice no longer had the same strength as before. She was clearly starting to realize the severity of the situation. She understood that she wasn't just arguing with the gate agent anymore. She risked being banned from the flight altogether. Meanwhile, Captain Elena calmly continued her work in the cockpit, seemingly unaffected by the chaos taking place just a few steps away. Elena is confident that the staff will handle the situation, and her primary concern is to ensure the flight takes off on time without further disruption. She didn't want to let Lisa's outbursts distract her from her responsibilities as a pilot. The supervisor, Mark, realized the situation needed to be resolved quickly. The other passengers were already starting to get restless, and he knew that their frustration would quickly boil over without intervention. Ma'am, Mark said, keeping his voice low and firm, we need to continue boarding passengers. Please make a decision now. Either you get on the plane and show some respect, or we'll continue without you. Lisa stared at Mark, her lips pursed into a straight line, clearly feeling the judging eyes from the other passengers. For a brief moment, she seemed to be weighing her options, caught between pride and the reality that she might be removed from the flight. The legal threat still hung in the air, but even she realized that it was just an empty promise. Finally, with a sigh of disappointment, Lisa raised her hands in defeat. Okay, I'll get on the plane, but don't think this is over, she said in a voice full of exasperation and irritation, stepping into the line with reluctance, while Mark nodded, ushering her back into the passenger line, making sure the flight could take place. Continue without further hindrance. The supervisor nodded at Lisa and said, Thank you for your cooperation. Please get on the plane. Lisa walked past him, burning with anger but knowing she had no other choice. As they walked toward the boarding counter, the passengers who had watched the whole thing looked at each other, some shaking their heads, some rolling their eyes. The feeling of relief that the situation had been resolved began to spread, but the atmosphere at the gate remained tense. Lisa flashed her boarding pass to the gate agent, glancing angrily toward the cockpit where Captain Elena was putting the final touches before takeoff. The gate agent quickly scanned her card, and a beep sounded. Lisa stepped onto the plane's bridge, her body stiff with frustration. The supervisor returns to his post, allowing the remainder of the boarding process to continue smoothly. As other passengers began to board the plane, the tension in the gate area gradually dissipated. They were relieved that the situation had finally come to an end. But even as Lisa boarded her flight, it became clear that her actions had backfired spectacularly. Instead of rallying everyone to her side, she did the opposite, uniting them behind Captain Elena. However, as she walked away, disappointment still made Lisa unable to stop. Stopping suddenly, she turned around and walked towards the gate agent, her voice loudly. I'm not flying with her. She pointed straight at Captain Elena, who had just finished checking in the cockpit. The passengers who thought the situation was over once again turned around and looked in disbelief. The atmosphere, which had begun to calm down, became tense again. Lisa's face turned red. Her voice became harsh. Can you find me another pilot or another flight? I wouldn't get on the plane if she was the one at the controls. The gate agent, now exhausted from the prolonged drama, replied with a sigh, "Ma'am, I have clearly explained that Captain Rodriguez is a highly qualified pilot. There are currently no other flights available, and we will not be changing pilots. You have a choice. Get on the plane or arrange another trip yourself." Lisa glared at the employee, her eyes narrowed with anger. She had hoped that her request would be granted, but instead, she only received confirmation that she had no say in the situation. "I want to see someone in authority," she snapped, her voice shaking with anger. "I am a paying customer, and I have the right to feel safe." The gate agent remained calm, but it was clear that her patience was running out. "You talk to our supervisor," she replied firmly. "I reiterate that your safety is nothing to worry about. Captain Rodriguez has made thousands of safe flights, and she is fully capable of getting you to your destination. Either you get on the plane, or you'll have to leave the gate area." The gate agent's tough tone did not leave any room for argument. Lisa's face contorted in anger, but now she realized that her options were quickly narrowing. The surrounding passengers began to get more restless. Some shook their heads in disbelief, some whispered to each other, and some even took out their phones to film the scene, preparing for a potentially contagious moment. Transmit. Realizing she is cornered, Lisa attempts one last desperate move. She pointed straight at Elena and shouted, loud enough for the entire gate area to hear, "This is your fault. You shouldn't even be a pilot. You are not qualified and you know it." Hateful words echoed throughout the area, but instead of receiving sympathy from the passengers, Lisa only saw them looking at her with shock and disgust. Her racism was evident to everyone. However, Captain Elena remained calm, unmoved by these hostile words. She only focuses on her mission, refusing to let her emotions get dragged into Lisa's drama. The gate agent, whose patience was now beyond the limit, stepped forward with a firm and determined voice. "Lady, I will have to ask you to leave. We do not tolerate this behavior. Security will be here shortly to escort you out." The supervisor spoke in a calm but firm voice. Lisa's eyes widened in shock as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You can't kick me out," she shouted. "I'm the customer. I have the right." But it was too late. Airline staff contacted security, and within moments, two uniformed officers appeared at the gate. Lisa's face paled as they approached, but even then, she refused to back down. "I won't go anywhere until I get what I want," she hissed through gritted teeth. The security officers have no intention of negotiating. One of them said, his voice calm but authoritative, "Ma'am, you have been asked to leave. Please pack your things and come with us." Lisa remained stubborn, shouting, "No, I won't go. You can't make me leave." Her voice grew louder, trying to assert her rights, but the officers were unmoved. They took a step towards her, prepared if necessary. Finally realizing she had no choice, Lisa bent down and grabbed her bag from the floor, yanking it and muttering angrily. Just as she was about to turn around and leave, she shouted the last word, her voice shrill with frustration. "This isn't over yet. You will hear from my lawyer." Security officers calmly escorted her toward the exit, while passengers watched in silence. Then almost suddenly, a wave of applause began to spread throughout the gate area. Initially, there was only a few claps, but within moments the entire lounge erupted with cheers and applause that echoed throughout the terminal, showing support for Captain Elena and the way the airline had handled this situation. Lisa's face turned crimson as she was led away. She had arrived at the gate with the intention of humiliating Captain Elena, but in the end she was the one who left humiliated. The applause grew louder, and Lisa's steps became faster and faster as she hurried out of sight, bowing her head in shame. The tense atmosphere is now gone, replaced by a feeling of relief and solidarity. From the cockpit, Captain Elena witnessed the entire scene, but still focused on her mission. She doesn't ask for attention or applause. All she wants is the silent support of her passengers to do her job. Taking a deep breath, she continued her pre-flight preparations, knowing that it was her responsibility to get all the passengers to safety. As the boarding process continued, other passengers filed in, boarding the plane without further incident. As they passed the cockpit, several passengers sent Captain Elena words of encouragement, thanking her for her professionalism in the face of adversity. Elena humbly nodded in response, maintaining her composure and concentration. When the last passenger was seated, A feeling of relief spread throughout the cabin. What happened before now feels like a distant memory, replaced by an atmosphere of solidarity and peace. Captain Elena, with determination and professionalism, prepared to take off, taking all passengers to safety. When the final pre-flight checks were complete, Captain Elena Rodriguez stepped out of the cockpit again, her calm and steady demeanor winning the respect of the crew. Everyone on the flight. As Elena walked down the aisle for a final check, an older woman sitting near the front gently waved her over. The woman's eyes sparkled with warmth and gratitude as she gently touched Elena's hand. "Captain," she said in a deep voice, "today you not only stood up for yourself, but for all of us. Thank you for keeping a calm demeanor under all the pressure." Elena's face softened into a modest smile. "Thank you, ma'am. My job is to ensure all passengers have a safe and smooth flight. I am honored to serve." The woman nodded, her eyes filled with admiration, as Elena returned to the cockpit. As she passed, other passengers whispered words of thanks, some smiling encouragingly, others nodding appreciatively. No one forgets that Elena not only demonstrated her skills as a pilot, but also as a steady leader, facing adversity with determination. Returning to the cockpit, Elena took a deep breath, regaining her stability for the journey ahead. Although she had flown this route countless times, today had a different meaning. The recent confrontation with Lisa was not a burden, but more like a reminder of why she had to work so hard to achieve her current position. Elena knows that her position comes not from luck, but from skill, passion, and years of dedication. As she sat down, a member of the crew, quite young, looked at her with admiration. "Captain, please get us to Los Angeles safely," he said, his voice full of admiration. Elena nodded, completely focused on the task at hand. She adjusted her headphones and began coordinating with air traffic control, ready to guide the plane to the runway. In the cabin, passengers fasten their seat belts and prepare for the flight. A noticeable change in atmosphere pervades the cabin. What began as a tense and uncomfortable situation has now become a powerful moment of solidarity. People who were strangers now feel connected. They have come together to speak out against hate. A shared sense of pride permeated the cabin, as if each person played a small role in standing up for what was right. When the plane started rolling on the runway, there was silence. Only the roar of the engine, and then the feeling of the plane gently leaving the ground. New York City gradually shrinks below, while passengers are lifted thousands of feet above the world, feeling an overwhelming peace. Elena expertly maneuvered the plane in the air, her hands steady on the controls. Even though she just went through a stressful confrontation, her passion for flying has not diminished. She knows who she is and knows the value of the work she is doing. The flight continued smoothly, the weather was perfect, and passengers relaxed in their seats, some watching movies, some reading books, or simply looking out the windows. Beneath the surface of this seemingly routine flight, the feeling that something special had happened pervaded everyone. Captain Elena not only takes them from city to city, but also shows them what it means to overcome prejudice and hatred. A young woman sitting in the middle of the cabin glanced around, realizing that everyone seemed calmer and more content than ever. Elena is not only a flight controller, but also a model of steadfastness, courage, and dignity in the face of difficult challenges. A passenger took out his phone and began typing messages to friends about the incident at the gate, recounting how Captain Elena handled the situation with surprising composure. "It's not every day you see someone who can defend themselves so strongly and professionally," she wrote. "I really feel lucky to fly on this flight." As the flight continued, flight attendants moved up and down the aisle, serving snacks and drinks. Many passengers took the time to chat with the crew, expressing their admiration for the way they and Captain Elena handled Lisa's situation professionally, without letting the incident affect safety, their mission. An hour passed and the plane was almost at its destination. Bright afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows as the plane approached the California coast, and the Los Angeles skyline came into view. Captain Elena's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are preparing to land at Los Angeles International Airport. I want to personally thank you for your patience and support today. It's an honor to fly with you. Make sure the seatbelt is tightened. Thank you again for choosing our flight." The passengers exchanged knowing glances, and smiles appeared on their faces. Elena's words had a deeper meaning than just an announcement. She had not only piloted the flight, but had also earned their respect through her actions. When the plane landed smoothly on the runway, a gentle round of applause spread throughout the cabin. It was not the usual boisterous applause, but a subtle gesture of respect, showing the final support for Captain Elena and the journey they had all experienced together. As the plane rolled into the gate and passengers prepared to disembark, they felt that the day had begun with tension and division, but had ended in solidarity and respect. Important. When they stepped off the plane, many people knew that this would be a flight they would remember forever. While Lisa left humiliated and angry, the consequences of her actions were just beginning. Some passengers discreetly filmed Lisa screaming and threatening the gate staff and Captain Elena, and quickly posted it on social networks. Within minutes of landing, the videos began to go viral, especially the one where Lisa aggressively pointed at Elena with a caption, "When a racist gets the wrong guy, watch Captain Elena handled it with poise." Within hours, the post was flooded with thousands of comments from all over the world. Everyone praised Captain Elena's professionalism and expressed outrage at Lisa's behavior. Hashtags like Jury Fly with Elena and anti-racism quickly trended, with many people sharing their stories of facing prejudice in public spaces and how they stood up against it. The video's reach exceeded expectations, and news outlets quickly reported it, broadcasting the story and contrasting Elena's calm demeanor with Lisa's hatred. Headlines like "Latino pilot handles racist passenger with calm demeanor" and "Pilot's classy response to racism" spread across websites and media channels. Image, sparking national discussions about discrimination in the airline industry and the importance of diversity. Many passengers on the flight shared their experiences in interviews, describing how Lisa's words upset them and how proud they were of Captain Elena's behavior. "Don't let the situation escalate. She handled everything with class and professionalism," one passenger said in an interview. "We need more people like her." Captain Elena's name became famous on social networks overnight. With messages of support and admiration from around the world, she suddenly became a symbol of resilience and strength. People see in her a model of a woman who rose above ignorance to assert her own worth without a single harsh word. In the days after the event, Elena's inbox was flooded with messages from all over the world. Young pilots and individuals who are nurturing the dream of working in the aviation industry sent her emotional words of thanks. One of the most memorable messages came from a young Latina girl who read, "When I saw what you did, I believed I could do anything. Thank you for showing me that being strong is not always about fighting back, but sometimes it's just about standing strong and being yourself." Reading those lines, Elena's heart surged with emotion. She realized that this event was not just about her, but also about thousands of people facing similar challenges. Her actions, however unintentional, inspired countless others to continue holding their heads high, regardless of the obstacles they may face. After the video went viral, the airline released an official statement within a day. They praised Captain Elena Rodriguez's professionalism and expressed pride in the way she handled the situation. "We fully support Captain Rodriguez," the statement said. "She has maintained the company's core values of respect and integrity. We have zero tolerance for any form of discrimination and are committed to ensuring that both passengers and crew feel safe and respected." The airline's quick response added fuel to the online conversation as more and more people supported Elena. Hashtags like #support Elena and "Fly with Pride" quickly emerged, and people began posting photos at the airport or on flights, using these hashtags to show solidarity with Elena. In the following days, TV stations contacted Captain Elena for interviews, wanting to hear her side of the story. Every time she appears, Elena always shares frankly about the incident, but cleverly shifts the focus to the larger message: fighting racism in everyday life. "That day," she said in a television interview, "was not just my story, it was about standing up for what is right. For everyone who has ever felt dismissed or disrespected, we cannot control how others treat us, but we can control how we react. And sometimes the best response is to stay calm and focused." Elena's words resonated with viewers, and soon her story was being spoken in classrooms, workplaces, and homes across the country. Elena is not just a pilot. She became a role model, a symbol of strength and steadfastness. Even as the media turned its attention to other news, social media users continued to share videos of how she stood her ground in the face of Lisa's hateful words. For many, she is proof that patience and courage in the face of adversity can create great change. Although Lisa initially threatened to sue, those threats never materialized. She disappeared from the public eye, apparently aware of the widespread condemnation she had received. On the contrary, Captain Elena's reputation grew, not only because of her skills as a pilot, but also because she was a leader who knew how to overcome ignorance and hatred. While Lisa tried to bring Elena down, her actions only served to elevate Elena's status. Admirers saw in Elena a reflection of their own struggles and victories. When Captain Elena's name appears in newspaper headlines, Lisa's life falls apart. The viral video not only exposed her racist remarks, but also put her personal life under scrutiny. In just a few days, people from all over condemned Lisa for her attitude, demanding that she face the consequences. Under tremendous pressure from public opinion, Lisa was finally forced to issue a public apology. In a careful statement, she expressed regret for the offensive words and said that her actions were just in a moment of anger. But for many people, her apology was just empty words. The damage was done, and to the public, it was too late for Lisa to fix it. Despite trying to right the wrong, Lisa's personal life and career were seriously ruined. Her reputation, once spotless, was now sullied. Her family, friends, and even neighbors all treated her differently. Lisa now becomes a cautionary tale about the destruction that hate and prejudice can cause. On the contrary, Captain Elena's reputation only continued to flourish. Although she did not seek attention or fame, her story and perseverance attracted millions. When interviewed, she always redirects the conversation to the larger issue: anti-racism. She hopes to inspire others to take action for a better world. In the weeks following the incident, Maya received countless messages from all over the world. Many people shared their stories of discrimination and how her response gave them hope. Parents even wrote letters to thank her for her story that inspired their children, especially young girls who dream of becoming pilots. Despite the attention, Elena remains humble, maintains her commitment to her work, and continues her flying career. Every time she steps into the cockpit, there is a special connection between her and her passengers, who feel secure flying with her. She became a symbol of strength and integrity, and passengers looked forward to flying with her, feeling the trust she brought. Elena's story is not only about standing up against racism, but also a testament to the power of patience and professionalism. It has become a beacon of hope, reminding people that no matter how difficult the challenge, how you respond will shape your character. Elena's journey shows the world that true strength comes from within, and the best way to rise above any challenge is to stay true to yourself. The story of Captain Elena and Lisa comes to an end, but Elena's legacy will live on forever as a powerful reminder that no matter how dark the times, dignity and respect will always shine through. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to follow inspiring stories like this.